Hey, what's going on YouTube? I'm Blaze, and today we're going to have a look at the second video in the Mythbusters series. Now, I'd really like to know whether it's worth continuing the series, so please show your appreciation with a like and a comment below whether you enjoyed it. If you didn't, please let me know how I could improve these videos. Whilst making this video, I actually found out that we just hit 100 subs. I want to thank you guys so much for that. It actually really does mean a lot to me. And please let me know in the comments below what you'd like me to do for my 100 subscriber special. Keep in mind that live streaming is always an option if you want me to start doing that. But other than that, we're going to dive straight in. Sorry for the drone in the background, I'm just in a bit of a weird setup today, so you'll have to live with that, whilst we look at the officer's disruption in Battlefront 2 and the weird interactions it has. Now, this is one of the weird star cards which I've always thought, what does it do? Because it's not really clear. It says in the description that it disables blasters and grenades, but that's not entirely true because it has different effects on different things, and that's what we're going to look at in this video. We're going to start off with the 4 regular classes, and we're going to start off with Assault. For Assault, we're going to look at the Vanguard, which, by the way, is the same as Infiltration, so I'll just do that then, reference it later. Also going to look at the Flash Pistol quickly and the Acid Launcher as well. So we're going to jump straight into it with the Vanguard. Now, the Vanguard's a weird one, although it does act like all the other time period abilities, so like the Heavy Sentry or the Specialist Infiltration, etc., in the sense that it can be disabled, but instead of overheating, which it can't do obviously, it's just got a time period whilst it's got an ionizing effect on it, and then actually the sound effect when you activate Vanguard should play when you're ready to shoot again, and your reticle will come back to normal from being faded away whilst you aren't able to shoot. However, if you deactivate Vanguard when it's disrupted, you will actually be able to immediately shoot with your blaster, and vice versa. So if your blaster's overheated as the Assault, you can actually activate Vanguard and then shotgun in the face of that annoying officer who decided to use Disruption because it's a cheap card. Sorry, part of making this video was me raging at Disruption and decided that it's time to find out the real counters to it, and actually the rest of this will make it very clear how to counter it. And we're going to move straight on to the Flash Pistol, which also gets disabled just like a regular blaster, but once again you can deactivate it, use your regular blaster as soon as you're disrupted, shoot the face of that annoying officer, and vice versa. If your regular blaster is disabled, you can activate Vanguard or your Flash Pistol if you're weird enough to use that star card, and then shoot the guy who just disrupted you. Now for the Acid Launcher. Now the reason that I tested this is because I saw that regular grenades, the grenades that have the red indicator when they're thrown at you by an enemy, always get disabled by Disruption pretty much. However, I noticed that the Acid Launcher, as well as the Trip Mine and Detonate Charge, actually come out with a white indicator, so I wonder what that was about, and I actually tested it out. And it turns out that you can actually deactivate the Acid Launcher with Disruption. However, it has to be moving in the air. So this means as soon as the Acid Launcher is set off, it cannot be stopped by Disruption. So basically, if you're an Assault using an Acid Launcher, go ahead, use that. You're not going to be at risk of getting it taken out by an officer. It's going to be pretty much fine unless some weird timing happens, because in order for the officer to deliberately disrupt it, you must have thrown the Acid Launcher straight up in the air and given him quite a lot of time to react, because the time before it hits the floor isn't long enough for the officer to complete the disruption animation anyway. Now moving on to the Heavy, and obviously we've got the Sentry, which is exactly the same as the Vanguard. It gets disrupted, but you can switch out to your regular blaster, and it has a time delay whilst it's disrupted instead of the regular overheat. As for the Heavy's Detonate Charge, I'm pretty sure it cannot be disabled, but that might just be arcade testing, because I'm pretty sure in multiplayer I have disabled it on objectives, for example, and as will be mentioned, Hand's Charge can be disrupted, which is a bit weird if the Heavies can't, because that would make the Heavy slightly better, but I guess you just can't take my word for that one. And now on to the Officer and the Heavy's turret. So that's the Ion turret for the Heavy and the Blaster turret for the Officer. Both of those can be disabled, same as weapons, they just won't work for a time period. However, that time period is really, really long. So actually, if you're playing as an officer and you decide to use Disruption for whatever reason, then disabling those turrets can actually yield like great results for your team, especially if they're in a choke point, because your team will be able to get past for a long time before those turrets are back working again, and in that time they'll probably destroy it anyway. And as for the Officer, the Flash Grenade was something I tested, because it's actually one grenade but then it becomes multiple grenades, and it turns out the original projectile, the one the Officer throws before detonating, that one cannot be disrupted. However, once the grenade explodes into smaller grenades, those can be disrupted. So if you're playing as the Officer and you see a flash grenade come next to you, then wait a bit before activating your disruption. But really, just playing against those with the disruption, throwing a flash grenade will be fine. They probably won't be able to disrupt it. As for the officer's shield, does nothing. And same with the diffuser. I'm not sure why I tested those, but just remember those can't be disrupted. For the specialist, the Stinger pistol and infiltration are exactly the same as the assault's flash pistol and vanguard respectively. Also, unsurprisingly, the thermal binoculars cannot be disrupted. However, the best part about this is because the disruptive effect does not carry over weapons, as soon as you're disrupted, if you toggle on the thermal binoculars and then immediately put them away, your blaster will be back to use. So as soon as you get disrupted as a specialist and you've got thermal binoculars equipped, just pull out those thermal binoculars, put them away, and your blaster will be ready to go, and you'll be able to just completely destroy the officer. The personal shield, on the other hand, is just wrecked by the officer as it's immediately disabled. However, if you have infiltration up under the shield, you will still get disrupted, however your shield will remain up. Unlike when you have your regular weapon, where both your shield will be destroyed and your weapon will be overheated. As for the trip mine, if you're looking at it and it's on a wall, you will disrupt it. However, if it's on the floor, you need to aim below it. So closer to your feet than the trip mine in order to disable it from the floor. It's a bit sketchy that. If it's on a wall, it works fine. But for some reason, when it's on the ground, you need to be looking in weird places for it actually to be disabled. Now for aerials, the rocket launcher cannot be disabled, weapons act normally and the jetpacks are not disabled. And for the enforcers, the overload ability acts as vanguard or infiltration, and their explosives are also disabled just the same. However, the death trooper is the exception to that, with the sonic imploder not actually being able to be disabled. And whilst the B2 battle droid is readying his rocket launcher, that cannot be disabled either. Now for the heroes and villains, be aware that all Saber heroes and Saber villains are not affected at all by disruption, so I'm just going to skip straight over those. Boba Fett too is not affected by disruption either, nor is Phasma. Nothing in our kit is affected by disruption. However, their blasters are of course disabled. Palpatine is not affected by disruption anyway, including his primary lightning, as he's on a kind of stamina system as opposed to a blaster. But as for the heroes that are affected, we're going to start off with Han. His detonate charge is disabled when an officer is looking at it, and his sharp shot ability, the same as Chewie's Furious Bowcaster, Leia's E11 and Lando's sharp shot, which is disabled the same as Vanguard or Infiltration. Chewie's stun grenade and Lando's smoke grenade cannot be disabled, but Lando's disabler can be disabled if an officer is looking in its direction. Bosk's Dioxis grenade and predatory instincts cannot be disrupted, however his mines can be disrupted, and those are actually really annoying, so if you are playing officer and are weird enough to use the disruption star card, then go ahead and disable his mines. It's actually great for clearing objectives. Lastly, we have Iden, whose shield and stun cannot be disabled. However, her pulse cannon can be disabled the same as a Stinger pistol. However, since it does not regularly have an overheat bar, it looks like it's just when a Vanguard is disabled, where the ion effect lasts for a while and you can shoot normally. However, you have to wait for a while longer after the red bar has diminished, because there is a second overheat bar which you just cannot see, which means that if you try and fire immediately, you'll overheat the weapon completely again. However, in situations like these, when an officer is that close to you as Iden, I would recommend switching out for a regular blaster, and of course the disruptive effect won't carry over there, and you'll just be able to shoot them. Hey guys, that's the end of the video. Sorry if I sound a bit tired during that. I'm just recording late in the evening. But other than that, all the usual stuff. Like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.